Today we listen to the story of Cain killing Abel. Sin spreads. Please support the channel by sharing and subscribing. Everyone. After Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden, they began a new life filled with work, challenges, and hope. Though the world outside was harsher and less perfect, it was also a place of new beginnings, where humanity would grow, learn, and shape its destiny. In this new land, they welcomed their first sons, Cain, the firstborn, and later Abel, his younger brother. Cain grew up strong and determined. He worked the soil, plowing the earth under the sun, nurturing seeds, and caring for every field that stretched before him. The land was not always kind, it demanded sweat, patience, and effort, but Cain took pride in his work. He believed that through labor and persistence, the earth would eventually reward him. Abel, on the other hand, had a gentle heart. He found peace among the sheep and animals, guiding them across hills, caring for the newborn lambs, and listening to the soft murmurs of nature. His work was calm and serene, filled with moments of quiet reflection, far from the harshness of the fields. Though different, both brothers served the world in their own ways, one tending the earth, the other tending the creatures upon it. As they grew, so did their understanding of the Creator who had formed their parents and the world around them. There came a day when both Cain and Abel decided to present offerings to God. As a sign of gratitude and devotion, Cain offered the harvest he had gathered, the fruits of the earth, hard-earned by his labor. Abel offered the best of his flock, the healthy, unblemished firstborn lambs that he cherished. When their offerings were laid before God, something unexpected happened, something that would forever change the bond between the two brothers. God looked with favor upon Abel's offering, but Cain's offering did not receive the same acceptance. From this single moment, this single spark, jealousy began to rise. A small ember of resentment flickered inside Cain's heart, quiet at first, but growing. He felt wounded, overlooked, and betrayed. Why Abel? Why not him? He had worked just as hard, perhaps even harder. His heart tightened, his thoughts darkened, and the harmony that once existed between the two brothers slowly began to fracture. This is the beginning of a story not only about two brothers, but about the power of emotion, jealousy, anger, and the consequences that can rise from a single unrestrained thought. A story of how sin, once entered into the world, began to spread from one heart to one family, and eventually to all humankind. After the moment God favored Abel's offering, Cain walked away with heavy steps. The air around him felt colder, the sky dimmer, and the soil beneath his feet, soil he once cherished, now seemed to resist him. A storm brewed inside his chest. He tried to push the thoughts away, but they kept returning, whispering, tormenting. Why Abel? Why not me? Haven't I worked hard enough? Haven't I given what I had? Each question fueled his anger, and each breath he took seemed to deepen the wound. Abel, unaware of his brother's turmoil, continued his peaceful work with the flock. He still smiled kindly at Cain. He still spoke gently to him, but these gestures only sharpened Cain's pain. The more Abel shined with innocence, the more Cain felt overshadowed. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, God spoke to Cain with a voice both firm and full of compassion. Cain, why are you angry? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you refuse, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it. These words echoed in Cain's mind. They were a warning, a hand reaching out, offering him a chance to turn back. But Cain's heart was already clouded. Instead of hearing love, he heard judgment. Instead of hearing guidance, he heard accusation. Day by day, jealousy and bitterness grew like thorns wrapping around his heart. He began to watch Abel, not as a brother, but as a rival. Every smile from Abel felt like an insult. Every blessing Abel received felt like a wound. Finally, one morning, Cain approached Abel with a calmness that did not match the storm inside him. Brother, he said softly, come with me to the field. I want to show you something. Abel, trusting and gentle, followed without hesitation. The field stretched wide under the sky, the wind whispering through the tall grass. There was no one else around, only the two brothers and the silent earth beneath them. Abel turned to Cain, expecting a conversation, a moment of bonding. Instead, he saw something he had never seen before, a darkness in Cain's eyes, an anger that swallowed all warmth. Before Abel could speak, before he could move, Cain struck. The world seemed to stop. The birds fell silent, the wind ceased, and the earth trembled as the first act of human violence unfolded. Abel's body collapsed onto the ground he had walked upon with love and peace. His blood seeped into the soil, staining the world with a sorrow that had never existed before. Cain stood over him, breath trembling, heart pounding. The weight of what he had done crashed over him like a tidal wave. He stared at his hands, his trembling, stained hands, unable to comprehend how far he had fallen. A single spark of jealousy had become the world's first tragedy. The field was silent after Abel fell. Cain stood frozen, breath shallow, his heart pounding violently in his chest. The sky above him felt darker than before, as if creation itself mourned the innocent life taken. The wind picked up slowly, soft at first, then heavier, as if whispering a message none could ignore. Cain turned away from Abel's body, unable to face what he had done. He stumbled across the field, gripping his hands as if he could erase the blood that stained them. But the stain was not merely physical, it had sunk into his heart, into the very core of his being. Then came the voice. A voice that Cain knew well, a voice that once soothed him, guided him, and filled him with peace. But now, that same voice caused his soul to tremble. "Cain," God called, "where is your brother Abel?" The question pierced through Cain like a blade. He opened his mouth, but the air in his lungs felt heavy. Fear wrapped around him like chains. Finally, he forced out an answer, attempting to hide the truth behind coldness. I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" The words, though spoken aloud, rang false even to Cain himself. They were hollow, weak, a desperate attempt to escape the weight of his crime. But nothing can be hidden from God. Then the voice came again, no longer gentle, but filled with a sorrowful power that shook Cain's spirit. "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." At that moment, Cain felt the world collapse around him. The soil beneath his feet, the field where he grew his crops, everything seemed drenched in the weight of what he had done. Abel's blood had become a witness, a testimony of innocence taken unjustly. God continued, his voice heavy with grief more than anger. "Now, you are cursed from the very ground you have defiled. When you work the soil, it will no longer yield its strength to eat. You will become a restless wanderer upon the earth." Those words struck Cain harder than any punishment he could have imagined. His entire life had been bound to the soil, planting, caring, harvesting. The land was his home, his identity, his comfort, and now it rejected him. Cain fell to his knees, trembling. "My punishment is more than I can bear," he cried. "You are driving me from the land I know. I will be hidden from your face. I will be a wanderer, and whoever finds me will try to kill me." His voice cracked, trembling with fear and despair. He was not only losing his home, he was losing his connection with God, the very source of life. But God, even while passing judgment, revealed a depth of mercy that Cain did not expect. "No," God said firmly, "if anyone kills you, vengeance shall be taken on them sevenfold." Then God placed a mysterious mark of protection upon Cain. No one knows its shape or form, only that it was a sign of God's mercy in the midst of punishment. The mark declared that although Cain had fallen, he would not be abandoned entirely. Shaken, broken, and carrying the weight of his crime, Cain rose from the ground. He walked away from the field, away from the land he once nurtured, away from the life he had known. His steps were heavy, each one a reminder of the brother he had lost, the brother he had taken. And so Cain journeyed east of Eden, becoming the world's first wanderer, a living lesson of where jealousy, anger, and uncontrolled desire can lead. But even in his exile, God's mercy followed him like a distant light in the darkness. The story of Cain and Abel, though brief and ancient, contains profound lessons that continue to speak powerfully to the human heart today. It reveals the inner struggle between good and evil, the danger of unchecked emotions, and the importance of sincerity, humility, and love in our relationship with God and with one another. At its core, the story teaches us that God sees beyond outward actions. He looks into the heart. Abel offered his sacrifice with genuine love, humility, and gratitude, and God accepted it. Cain, on the other hand, brought an offering that lacked sincerity. His heart was clouded with jealousy and pride, which prevented him from recognizing the true purpose of offering something to God. From this, we learn that what matters most is not the size or form of our gift, but the intention and purity behind it. God values authenticity over appearance. Another powerful lesson comes from the destructive force of jealousy. When Cain compared himself to Abel, instead of improving his own heart, he allowed envy to consume him. Jealousy led to anger, anger turned into resentment, and resentment finally became violence. This progression shows us how a single unchecked emotion can grow into a tragedy. The story encourages us to guard our hearts, confront negative feelings early, and seek transformation before those feelings take root. The conversation between God and Cain also highlights the importance of personal responsibility. God warns Cain that sin is crouching at the door, but Cain must master it. This teaches us that every individual has the freedom and duty to choose what is right. Temptations will always exist, but we are not slaves to them. We are accountable for our actions and cannot blame others for the choices we make. Even after Cain committed a terrible act, God's response demonstrates both justice and mercy. Cain faced consequences, yet God did not abandon him. Instead, he placed a protective mark on Cain so that he would not be killed by others. This act shows us that God's love remains even when we fail. His justice disciplines, but his mercy protects and restores. This balance between justice and compassion reflects God's desire for every person to repent, grow, and live with dignity. Ultimately, the story of Cain and Abel teaches that the greatest offering we can give God is a pure heart. It reminds us to purify our intentions, resist destructive emotions, take responsibility for our actions, and cultivate love instead of hatred. It calls us to honor the sacredness of life and to treat others as our brothers and sisters. The tragedy of Cain and Abel is not just a warning, it is an invitation. An invitation to walk in humility, to choose love over envy, to seek reconciliation instead of revenge, and to live with a heart aligned with God's goodness. The next video is Story 5, Noah and the Great Flood. Please support the channel by sharing and subscribing to the channel so that I have the motivation to release the next video.